So, what is a sociopath, or what are some perspectives, some outside the box or outside the ego, or maybe little higher perspectives on what's a sociopath? So, a sociopath is a good argument for reincarnation. That's what a sociopath is. Do-do-do. And the crowd goes wild. So why do I say that? Well, a sociopath is a person born without empathy. Now, I would say that it seems to me that most humans in this world have at least some degree of empathy. But as an extremely empathic person, let me tell you, there's hugely different varying degrees among different people of empathy as well as any other trait, okay? Picture like a mixing board with all these different adjustable dials, and these are all many different traits that a person can have, and they all have extremely different volumes from 0 to 1,000, and on any different person these knobs are in all completely different unique places, right? There's some commonalities, but ultimately it ranges to every extreme and every combination thereof. So, and that's creation. So a sociopath, person born without empathy, maybe not entirely without empathy, because I think that's what they call a psychopath, who for sure just completely without empathy. Sociopath would be someone who's mostly without empathy, and it's pretty easy for them to rationalize with themselves why it's okay to just do whatever to whoever and not really be bothered by it. So, now a lot of people say, well, that's a monster. You know, and that's fierce talking, and I understand, because the thing I throw in there to remember is it's not the person's fault. It's not like they understand how they're lacking empathy compared to others and what that really means. It's where they are, it's how they are. And yes, the consequences of that can be a lot of suffering and destruction to others. So it is, you know, not without its consequences. A person walking around on Earth, sociopathic, and we have a lot of them, and a lot of them are in positions of making decisions that move other humans around a chessboard, because when you're a sociopath or a psychopath, it's very easy to do a job like that. You don't ever lose any sleep over who got killed in what awful way, and whose children, what happened. Like, you just don't care, because people are pieces on a board to you, so it doesn't bother you at all. Now me, it would be a nightmare to me to be put in a position where I had to make the decisions on who's, you know, how to triage who from what, and decide who dies where and when, and all this crap, and make laws and inflict them upon other people and stuff. I'm way too aware of how that affects people. So I would not want a position like that. And I'm not saying that everybody in decision-making positions is a sociopath. Not at all. There's no doubt people with noble intentions who set out to get into positions like that, and hopefully some of them do sometimes. But a sociopath is just somebody who, it really is a game to them. It's like Monopoly with humans, you know. It's just, they don't feel your pain. It means nothing to them. So why would I say that's a good argument for reincarnation? Well, have you noticed how everybody is born, and if you pay any attention, you notice that, like, even from a very young age, like, I have 2 kids, anybody that's had different kids must have noticed this, if, you know, if you're paying attention at all, that, like, every human being has some very distinct personality traits from the beginning of their life that are their own, okay? It's not a random thing, because there's no such thing, and it's not an accidental genetic thing. It's the consciousness. It's the consciousness of that being who's now come and incarnated in that form. They're already showing certain traits of who they are up to that point. So if a person comes into this life with no empathy or whatever, it shows that in other lives, whatever those lives have been, um, they haven't been lives where the development of any empathy was something that had occurred. So this being literally does not perceive empathy, okay? Some people don't perceive this, some people don't perceive that. It's like a feeling that doesn't yet exist in their reality, okay? And of course, as a soul, they will no doubt develop empathy through this life and others and whatever else and whenever else, because a soul is something that explores all kinds of different things in order to expand itself in all directions. But it's showing you that that person, wherever they're coming from, coming into this life, they have not yet had the opportunity or whatever to figure out what empathy is and why they should have some, okay? So as terrifying as it is to share a world like this with a lot of people who don't comprehend empathy or possess it, and I don't know about a lot, what percentage it is, but it doesn't take a very big percentage of people like that to create a whole lot of suffering and harm in some cases. It's kind of a terrifying reality, but that's the thing about this world. You can be anything and be here in this world, okay? There's no there's no disqualifications for what kind of a being can come into this world. Whatever kind of personality, whatever you want to, whatever you are, it all walks around in this world. And rather than hate or fear, I always think that just understanding's better. It's just a soul who isn't in touch with what empathy is yet, okay? And there's things that all of us are not. That's really the good news about creation and existence and life, is none of us are fully in touch with anything, okay? We're slowly, and to me it seems very slowly, growing into more of what there is, but none of us have tapped, at least not in this human form, nobody's tapped very deeply into what anything is. So I don't have any judgment against somebody that they don't have empathy, but it certainly doesn't make them someone who I can trust with the well-being of others, because they just don't have what it takes to properly understand that. They don't. So, yeah, there's that, okay? And remember, everything's on spectrums. We're not talking black and white. Nothing's black and white. There's no 100% this or 0% this. It's on the spectrum of empathy. A person who might be classified as sociopath has so little of it that it's like they almost have none. There's not enough in their awareness that it even shows, okay, in their reality, to them or anybody else. So everything's a spectrum, and all consciousnesses are exploring things in order to grow, in order to gain awareness. People are always judging each other because, this other person doesn't happen to know something about life that you know. But the opposite is true in countless ways. So it never really makes that much sense to judge too much. That being said, there's a place for action, and when people are an actual danger, an actual threat to those who you care about, you should do whatever you honestly believe is in the best interest to take care of those you care about, whatever that takes, okay? And just because I say, there's judging people, all it does is it blocks you off from your own self-love ability, which makes living in a higher vibration of self-mastery and life possible. So it's just not in your best interest. It just doesn't help you to judge anybody else. So just to understand that that person literally doesn't possess that empathy, that it's not that they're choosing to withhold it, they don't know what it is or where it is, okay? They haven't found any within them like you have. So it's good to know that. It's good to understand the risk there. It's good to understand the situation. It's like a good chemist. You need to know all the different chemicals in the lab, right? They're not all just bottles. Each one of them has different energies in it, and if you do a certain thing with this one or that one, you can blow up the whole lab. Well, same with people. Just having understanding about the fact that humans really are coming at life from completely different places. Like, they might as well be in a different universe, okay? And yet they're all sharing the same Earth, not seeing it the same at all. Despite the fact that there's so much herd mentality and people acting the same, people's actual viewpoint is much more individual. And so on all the different spectrums of things, furthermore, just because somebody's sociopathic doesn't mean that their life might not have a very net positive effect on this world. Everything in creation ultimately serves a purpose for everything else. But that doesn't always have to come through, the negative side of that. It could, just because someone's sociopathic doesn't mean they're going to purposely find ways to hurt others. They may take no interest in that. They may just lack the emotional depth to actually experience empathy for themselves. They may never know what it's like to feel somebody else's tears, Even the closest person to them. As much as they might like to know, they may not know. They may not be able to feel anything about that. So, everything's just energies. Okay? Energies and switches and dials, and we're all as unique as if you were randomly flipping and flying through space, just snapping snapshots with a camera of different angles of all the stars and galaxies. And every one of those is a person just infinitely going out there into different star patterns nobody's ever seen before from that angle. Okay? So, a certain amount of people in the world are so low in the empathy spectrum, And you take any other spectrum, same thing. There will be people that just have like none of that. Like zero courage, or they're zero in touch with their own creativity, or they're zero in touch with some other aspect of what it can be to be a living sentient being doing the thing called human. We're all missing out, okay? We're all missing out on certain things. That's what growth is about, guys. It's about expanding and opening up and connecting to a lot more of what's there in reality into your experience. That's growth. That's consciousness expansion. Consciousness expansion is not about now I can do the biggest math problem in the world in my head. Hold on. Shut up. Consciousness expansion is not so much about, being like a computer, being able to calculate work tasks faster. I mean, it could be that, but really we're talking more about layers of awareness opening up to you, where you exist in a reality that's got much, much more to it and going on than the reality that you used to live in, okay? So, different people standing next to each other on the same street are basically oftentimes existing in totally different realities, okay? Where the feelings, the thoughts, the viewpoints, the beliefs, and the entire experience is just as different as they could be, okay? Same with every emotion. So, that's a sociopath. Now, a narcissist, because someone also asked about that, I don't really... I read different definitions of narcissist, and it almost seems unclear to me what we're actually saying here. But I do know enough to know that a narcissist, like, most people are extremely annoyed by a narcissist because the constant bragging for attention, and I can't say most people, they actually do get attention from a lot of people, which is what seems weird, because it seems so ridiculous and see-through to others who are watching. But it's really just this desperate need for attention and boasting, and it's ridiculous. And they look, I mean, it's embarrassing, okay? And it's just because they're being an energy vampire. They don't have any connection to self-love, so they need to try to do this game that they're doing to make as many people give them attention and recognition and lip service as possible. So it's a desperate, it's like when a ship sinks and somebody's drowning other people, trying to keep themselves afloat. They're just drowning others and standing on top of them in the water and stuff. It's that kind of activity. That's what spiritually, at the energetic level, that's what a narcissist is. It's just somebody who's, just desperately trying to push themselves up and others down and get attention for some air, for a little bit of life, because they feel so cut off from their source inside. So again, it's, to see it more clearly and see it for what it is. It's not anything to be, judging or hateful. That's just fear talking. Don't fear a narcissist. Understand that, yeah, you don't like being around them for good reason. It doesn't feel good being around them. It doesn't feel good being them. That's why it doesn't feel good being around them, okay? So just see it for what it is. It's a person who feels very cut off and they're acting very desperate, and they're just living a life of more desperation than even most people. And in most cases, they're doing a lot of stuff that's really embarrassing and, self, you know the story. So, and they get a certain amount of, attention from people with no discernment that you just like, I don't even know what to say about that, honestly, but none of that attention obviously fixes anything because they're still not connected to what they need, which is that ability to open your center in your heart and radiate self-love to yourself, okay, until it's overflowing. And then there's zero jealousy in you, there's zero desperation, there's zero judgment towards anybody or yourself anymore. You live at an extremely high vibration. You make connections with beings, you make connections with realities that you didn't know were there before. Some part of you knew, but the rest of you wasn't ready for it, so you just couldn't go there. All these things are possible through that whole energetic process of finding out what it means to just be a source of that love, that life-giving energy that everybody's doing weird, awful things to each other for in this world, and yet they could simply access an unlimited supply if they knew this and become the source of it, okay? Instead of choking each other and stabbing each other in the back for a perceived lack thereof. It's an amazing energetic blindness, but it's simply a low level of consciousness on Earth. This is a low level world. It's dense, it's waking up, it's making some progress now. Some are, who are open to it, who are accepting all the help that's available in this world that wasn't there before. But compared to what more evolved consciousness is, there's just a whole lot of operation out of blindness is what's going on here. There's no such thing as a narcissist in any kind of more enlightened society of beings, okay? Where self-love is just part of life. There's no such thing like that. There's no cause for that. So anyway, it's just that. It's an energy vampire struggling and scratching and drowning and clawing at others to try to make themselves rise up because they're so crushingly cut off from any source of life or self-love, sadly. And that's all in their perception. They can change that at any time, as can anyone. But it does take one's willingness to do so. That kind of thing does not force itself on a person. So, yeah, that's my take on those two things. Pretty cool questions, and you asked for sort of like a more spiritual, explanation on those two words, definitions of people, and so that's what comes up for me on that. So, let me know what you think. Much love. Over and out for now.